The boy takes antique objects from his house to exchange for money every day because he has developed a retirement plan. He selects items that he can carry, and it won't be long until he can escape the clan with the only servants who care about him. The servants do not know why the young master takes walks here every day and think that he just likes the decor. If something is damaged here, the clan leader will definitely not forgive them. The boy knows that his father only cares about martial arts and nothing else, but he is aware of everything he does. His daily schedule is reported to others, and his father is the strongest in history. The NamGung clan is also a well-known clan that advocates martial arts. His older brothers have inherited their father's talent, and he also worked hard to avoid damaging the family's reputation. However, as he did not have high innate talent, his dantian suddenly shattered. Now, he trembles at the thought of it. Therefore, he will not compete for the position of the clan leader again in this life. It all started on the day of the NamGung clan's election for the clan leader, when everyone was discussing who would win. His 3 older brothers were the targets of discussion, but when they talked about him, they all thought he was a joke and called him trash. At this moment, an old man came to his side. The boy ignored him, but the old man sat across from him and told him that his family was killed 8 years ago. The boy's current state is very similar to his own at that time, and if he goes back, he can prevent the tragedy from happening. Although he found a way to do it 8 years later, he did not dare to try. The boy did not want to listen to the crazy old man and got up to leave. When he almost fell, the old man caught him instantly. He left after shaking off the old man, not knowing where to go, as he could not return to his own clan and had spent all his money on an inn. The saddest thing was that he encountered bandits who wanted to rob him. When they found out he had no money, they stabbed him with a sword. When they searched him, they found only a piece of torn paper. They complained and left after realizing that the boy was not lying. It was something the old man gave him, but he couldn't understand what it said. His memories slowly began to flood back, and he realized that all his efforts were in vain in his previous life. Perhaps dying would be his best relief. He closed his eyes slowly, feeling really tired. When he opened his eyes again, he had turned into a child, and everything around him was familiar yet disgusting. He thought he had really returned to the past and struggled to adapt for a year. He knew that after he became an adult, he would have to face clan competitions, but he did not have the confidence to surpass his brothers this time either. So, he needed to find a way to live comfortably, which is to escape from the oppressive clan. Maybe he tried too hard, and he pooped on his own pants. Today is the day their master graduates from kindergarten, and the blood-colored army of the NamGung clan has come to escort him home. The captain who came to pick him up was also impressive outside the clan. He was pleased to see the young master grow up healthily, and even though the elders have cut off his subsidy, he can still grow up positively with such conditions. They will definitely safely send him home. Afterwards, the young master was asked to get on the carriage, and everyone was waiting for him at home, not to welcome him, but to observe his talent. He will try his best to make a fool of himself according to his plan. Let those people say that he has no martial arts talent, and then leave the clan with money. Suddenly, he was frightened by a burst of pressure. He didn't expect this person to appear here, the current strongest martial god and the NamGung clan leader, his father, who he fears the most. He remembers his father never participated in this kind of activity before, and he is unsure if his plan can deceive him. The head of the family let the captain of the blood team leave first, and then asked him why he didn't pay respects to his father. It wasn't that he didn't want to pay respects, but it was the pressure that made him unable to move. Seeing his son's lack of manners, the master of the clan is preparing to kill the boy's servant. The boy didn't want his only maid, who cared about him, to be implicated. He finally overcame his fear and quickly paid respects to his father. Seeing this, his father didn't say much and turned to leave. Then the family began the banquet. At the banquet, he found his brothers. In his past life, he had been competing with 3 brothers for position. He wouldn't do this silly thing again in this life. He would try his best to show his friendliness and leave the competition for the head of the family to his brothers. He would stay out of it. After the banquet, the guests were all asked to leave because only direct relatives could witness the young master's test. After the guests left, the elders had someone bring out the things prepared. Today, they would test the young master's talents. There were 3 tests that he needed to complete. The first was to test his strength. The young master effortlessly lifted a small iron ball, which made everyone think he was joking since his brothers could lift up to 100 kilograms. He couldn't even lift a 50-kilogram iron ball. The elder had no choice but to proceed to the next test of agility. The young master went up but fell down in less than a second. The third test was to test his perception ability. The boy noticed that only his brothers and some core members were watching. Even if he was given the position of the head of the family, he didn't want it now. His father was watching his son's test from afar, but he couldn't see his son's purpose at the moment. The third test would activate NamGung clan's unique internal skill all over the young master's body. He had to remember the route and do it again himself. This was the opportunity the boy had been waiting for. He would completely disrupt his meridians so that he wouldn't be able to practice martial arts for several years. He only wanted the family to think he was a martial art waste. He would randomly use the family's internal skill, damaging his meridians. In order not to be found out, he could only grit his teeth and endure the pain. Even if he got hurt while escaping, it didn't matter because the family's doctors and spiritual medicines were the best. When everyone felt something was not right about his condition, the boy had already sprayed a mouthful of blood and passed out. The elder quickly sent someone to find a doctor, but the head of the family arrived and told them not to worry. He ordered the elder to summon the divine doctor to his room. After he spoke, he disappeared from the spot. The three brothers were all lost in thought seeing this, wondering if their father was more concerned about their younger brother. The elder had already gone to the divine doctor's room, but he couldn't see why this person was called a divine doctor. He just woke him up and told him the head of the family was looking for him. Since the other party didn't respond to his words, the elder said that if he didn't go, the head of the family would make a hole in him. This statement worked, and the divine doctor left. After he left, the elder fell into contemplation. He knew that the young master's subsidy should have been cut off a long time ago, and he didn't expect him to still get the attention of the head of the family. Was it because the young master resembled his deceased wife? A few days later, the boy opened his eyes and heard the conversation next to him. The divine doctor didn't expect that there would still be a heavenly martial arts body in this era. The boy didn't know what they were talking about but felt that his body was full of strength instead of pain. He thought he had been unconscious for several months. The divine doctor asked Tanchiel if his son was not very smart. The boy knew that even the head of the major sects dared not directly call his father's name. He didn't know who the person in front of him was. At this point, the divine doctor said that he had saved the boy. The boy thanked him on the surface but knew that he could no longer pretend to be ill. He could only think of another way to leave the family. Although his father didn't know what tricks he was playing, he would know sooner or later. The boy had never talked to his father about this in either life. He felt that his father in this life was different from his father in his past life. At this point, the divine doctor asked if the boy was uncomfortable in any way. The boy had never felt so energetic before. The divine doctor said that if it weren't for his treatment, the boy would have already died. The boy's meridians were intertwined unlike those of an ordinary person, causing his qualifications to not be very high no matter how hard he tries. Forcing it open like before would only result in it returning to its original state. If there's another blockage in his meridians, it'll shatter. The boy didn't expect his plan to be so dangerous. Immediately afterwards, he thanked the divine physician for saving his life once again. Seeing that the boy was polite, he asked for his name. The boy told him his name was NamGung Dezo. The divine physician mentioned that having two heavenly martial constitutions appear in one family, he wonders what kind of impact it will have on the martial arts community in the future. At this moment, the patriarch interrupted their conversation, only concerned about whether or not his youngest son can still practice martial arts. The divine physician stated that most of his martial arts can't be practiced, even the NamGung clan's clear heart technique. Forcing himself to train will only result in his meridians breaking. Hearing this, Dezo was abnormally happy. His father then called forth the Shadow Guardian and instructed him to retrieve something, followed by handing Dezo a basic sword technique book. As he watched the two leave, he felt that his father had not changed and had still given up on him. His father carefully chose a secret manual for his son, but it was only a basic sword technique that children could practice, without any inner strength required. After being unconscious for a few days, he decided to go fill his stomach first. At this time, the boy had no idea how this secret manual would change things. When he returned to the mansion, the maids were overjoyed to see that he was okay. He wondered why he needed to receive recognition from those people. The sisters here were the ones who cared about him. Here, he felt the sense of home. Of course, the plan to escape the clan must continue, but the divine physician said that he was actually a divine warrior. He knew that there were many types of constitutions in the world, and the best one was the heavenly martial constitution. It was a constitution that might not appear for an entire era, but he didn't feel like he was any different, and it was impossible for him to surpass his older brother within 10 years. Therefore, he obediently planned how to escape. He couldn't sleep at night and thought that reading a book could help him fall asleep. The author wrote this book with the goal of breaking through to reach the peak. Rather than a secret manual, it was more of the author's personal account. The book mentioned that when ordinary people practice swordsmanship, they think about where the endpoint is: powerful sword energy, sword control, and even having a sword heart. Most people ignore the importance of the starting point. The author has mastered all the sword arts in the world and divided them into 3 categories: heaven, earth, and human forms. If you master these 3 movements, you can use any sword technique. Dezo felt that the author was more like a fraud, but subconsciously glanced at the sword beside him. On the other side, the patriarch and the divine physician were watching the entire clan on the rooftop. There were people sparring in every empty space. The divine physician felt that this scene was terrifying. However, their attention was drawn to a figured little son walking out of the house holding a sword. Dezo had swung his sword tens of thousands of times in his past life. This basic sword technique is nothing to him, but it really only had 3 moves. He felt that he could write a secret manual like this himself, but for some reason, he still wanted to swing his sword a few more times before bed. Before long, the divine physician's expression became shocked. He suspected that the patriarch had done something to the child. The patriarch stated that he hadn't done anything, and the child was simply swinging his sword. The divine physician knew that the patriarch had given him the sword emperor's true scripture, but it was only the 3 basic sword techniques. He couldn't understand the state the boy was in. Looking at his son, the patriarch didn't say much. As time passes, the sun is about to rise. The divine doctor asked the master of the house if the boy has entered the realm of selflessness, a state that can only be achieved with the flow of natural order. Not only can one find answers here, but they can also discover new paths. The master of the house told the divine doctor that his son was just practicing swordplay. Despite being a weak and powerless child with no inner strength, the door to the vast world of martial arts was opening for him. Although sweat kept pouring out, he felt refreshed and clear-headed. He couldn't remember how interesting it was to swing a sword. In his past life, he had been constantly practicing martial arts, but all that awaited him was pain. Even if he imitated others, he had to practice thousands of times. His father and the divine doctor had been watching him from the rooftop. They knew that the boy's body was like a dried-up land, so the divine doctor couldn't understand the current situation. The head of the household said that he gave the boy the swordsmanship created by the Sword Emperor. Although he wasn't as famous as the Sword Emperor, anyone could learn this sword technique, even his son who couldn't learn martial arts. People could strengthen their bodies with martial arts and repair damaged bodies. The divine doctor understood why the boy had gathered internal energy in his body, but the head of the household felt that the Sword Emperor was interesting. He wondered what kind of performance his son would give. By the time Dezo realized it was already morning, he had given up on practicing martial arts and wanted to escape, but now that he had strength, he wanted to swing his sword. Then the maid asked the young master to wash up and he ended his sword practice. The divine doctor asked the head of the household if the boy knew about his changes. The head of the household saw his son leave and didn't plan to keep him for long. The divine doctor knew that the seed in the boy had already formed. Was it because of his heavenly martial body? Then he checked the boy's condition again and was surprised at how quickly he had recovered. The divine doctor was truly envious of the boy's youth. Then he left. Dezo knew that the first plan had failed. He could only think of a second plan. NamGung clan revered strength and it was divided by class within. Everything was because of the ideology his father conveyed. Only the words spoken by the strong were correct, but none of this mattered to him. Then he went to the training field, thinking it would be crowded, but there was no one there. When he was puzzled, a few people returned. Through their conversation, he learned that they were there to observe swordsmanship. Then they talked about the youngest son of the family, who was said to be a complete waste and would participate in the assessment of the practice field with them if he wanted to become an official NamGung disciple. One way was to wait for the annual evaluation, and the other was to defeat all the students here. This was called the Fearless Martial Arts Competition by the students. His brothers had each spent 30, 60, and 90 days respectively. This way of passing was already a crazy behavior. After all, only the elite of the elite came here. The shadow from his past was still affecting Dezo. Then he quietly left. He could only wait for the annual evaluation once a year. The first plan was ruined by the appearance of the divine doctor. He had to succeed in the second plan. He memorized the 4 books and 5 classics at the age of 5, passed an examination at the age of 8, and disappeared from this world at the age of 10. When he reappeared, he was already a deputy strategist for the NamGung clan army. Today, he personally came to take the young master to the training field to practice. Just as the young master was about to happily practice his sword, he remembered that swinging his sword for 100 years would accumulate 30 years of power. Even so, he doesn't know why he persists. He knew that someone would take him to the training field today, but he didn't expect a big shot to come and pick him up.